All right, so back at it, preparing for the next race, which is April 13th, 2024. It's the last race before they go on like a summer break kind of thing. So there was a couple issues from the last race that I want to try to take care of, like an exhaust leak. So what I've started to do is remove, I thought I could remove these plastic panels in the back to give me more access to the engine, but it looks like you can't get it around the roll cage. But I'm taking off what I can because it's giving me the opportunity to clean a bunch of stuff. So, you know, that's a good thing. I was kind of gives you the chance to look at things and clean things and make sure everything is good to go. So I'm just, you know, kind of taking everything off. If I can't completely get to it by taking all the stuff off, that's fine. It'll give me a little bit better access, but yeah, that's what I'm doing. So exhaust leak, and then I'm going to take the front diff out, and I'm going to change the seals in the front diff and also check the bearings to make sure they're not bad, and do some other little things, and then yeah, it should be ready. So I'll do probably another little, once I find my exhaust leak, I'll probably do another update on that. I'm going to take the whole exhaust off from the header, you know, from at the cylinder head all the way back, because I want to take a look at it. So yeah, I'm going to do that and then see what's up. Cool. All right, so got the whole entire exhaust out. Wasn't able to take all the plastic covering around the engine bay area off. That's okay, because I got the exhaust out anyway. And so starting from the back, taking the muffler off and everything, probably need a new, looks like a little bit of a crack in the isolator. There's a rubber isolator here and here where the muffler slides onto. Then getting the bolts to the header pipe off are pretty easy. There was one bolt that was a little tricky, but you can like go through the hole in the interior here and you can get to all the bolts. And they even put, it's kind of cool, they put like a hole in the heat shield, which you can see. This is the hole here in one of the heat shields, the one that goes right next to the header pipe, and that you can get to the bolt that's in back of all that. Now, took off all the heat shields. It's got these little metal clamps that I, you know, like pried the little clasp thing open, and then it slides off. And I found my problem is a crack. Where's it at? Oh yeah, okay, here you go. So down in there, you can see there's a crack that runs from back here. I don't even know if that's visible on this camera, but you can see there's a crack in there right here. Runs and you know, the bad part about it is it's in a spot that would be very difficult to weld. Not impossible, just difficult. So couple options. I might try to get some tubing and fix that myself, or find a new header pipe. A lot of the times what I found is like with a lot of these parts is that guys they'll put a new exhaust on their car and they'll get rid of the header pipe, or they'll get rid of the stock parts for pretty inexpensive. So I'm gonna go down that road, see what I can find. If I cannot find one, this is like the journey of it, right? If you can't find one, see what one costs, see what it's going to take to repair it. I have everything needed to repair it. You know, it's tricky. And much easier just to buy one that is good and replace it. And it must be from, I guess it could have been forming, but from the last race, the rocks and just the bouncing around and probably the high heat did it. Now, another thing I did, you know, when I got the header pipe off, is I looked in through my exhaust ports, because you can see straight in there. And on one side, if you're looking at it from this direction, this cylinder looks a little wet in there. So like a valve guide seal or valve stem seal. So probably gonna need a cylinder head rebuild. Might do that in the off season. So I might give it one more race, try to fix this problem, check the valves, make sure they're all good. And then next race, you know, over the off season, maybe get the cylinder head rebuilt, see how what it's gonna take to do that. But yeah, you know, luckily these are motorcycle engines, so everything's relatively small and inexpensive and to work on and stuff like that. So, you know, I'll do some research and look into it. The next thing I'm gonna do, probably since now that I've figured that out, is I'll push the car back. I'm gonna lift it up since I don't need to really touch that anymore. And I'm going to do the front diff. First, I might look into see how difficult it is to do the valve, because with it down here, it's a little easier before I roll it back. But yeah, you know, that's where I am for now. It's the update there. That's the fun part. The fun part is finding all the, yeah, luckily, here's the thing. At first, when I took the header pipe off, the gasket looked good. So I was like, man, do I take the heat shields off? Do I not? Put the new gasket back in, see if it would. But in my experience, I knew, like, no, take the heat shields off. I got it off. You know, I got it out, take the heat shields off, see what's up. And I'm glad, because now I know exactly what it is. And that's the thing. You got to get, I think you work to the point where you can confirm. And if you can't confirm, say I were to take the heat shields off and there was no crack, that was that obvious, you know, you put it back on and hope for the best. You know, maybe it was the gasket. All the bolts were tight, so definitely that wasn't an obvious thing. That would have been kind of a mind trick if the bolts were loose, or some of the bolts. You know, I might have just been like, oh, it's just the bolts, let me tighten the bolts up, but they were pretty tight. So yeah, there you go. This is part of the deal. And luckily I've been working on vehicles for a pretty long time, so I kind of have an idea of how I want to do the maintenance. It's just now applying that to the racing of the vehicle and all that. So yeah, there you go. There it is for now. Stay tuned for the next update. All right, so on to the next step, which is I pulled the front diff out. It's right there on the ground. In order to do that, the manual says to, you know, got to pull the axles off. So in order to do that, you have to take off the front prop shaft, and you know, in order to do that, you got to do all that stuff. Now, one of the things that I noticed when I did, or in doing that, my cross member back here, right in front of where the front engine mount is, where the prop shaft crosses over, it's pretty well beat up. And so it hits the front prop shaft, the back part of it, and it rubs on it. So I need to think of how I can, either I need to cut a relief in that, or I have to somehow push that cross member down again. So that's another problem for another time. But I got the diff out. I don't know if the noise is normal. So that's something I'm gonna have to research and figure out. Because it does sound like I feel that when not when I'm on the power, but when I come off power. So I don't know if it's the diff that's making that noise and I feel it, or it's the prop shaft, because when I spin the tire with the wheels in the air, I can feel through the chassis the prop shaft hitting that part. So I don't know what the noise is. So my approach, so anyway, back to removing it. You take the front half of the prop shaft off. You have to take the axles out. So that means you gotta take the brake caliper off the hub carrier. Then you have to take the pinch bolts out of the upper and lower A-arm. That pops the hub and everything off. You have to take the axle nut off, cotter pin, the cone washers. You slide that over to the side. Then you just, they say the short, sharp tug on the axle because there's this little clip, spring clip. What I did is I have this like tire spoon that I just kind of like put in back of it. Because when I was doing it, it was like shaking the whole car and I thought it was kind of dangerous. So I just put this in back of it and just kind of gave it some light little leverage tugs on it. And it pulled right out. And so I got my axles out. They really stress in the manual that to be very careful with the axles because they're precision components. So got all that out. Then I just did the clip, the electrical connector, the vent tube, and then the 4 bolts. 4 bolts, it all popped out. It's super dirty in there because it was leaking and dirt was getting all in it. So I'm gonna clean all that out. It's nice, and there's a couple rocks in there. So I got those out. Now, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do some research and figure out the noises and see if they're okay. The other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna replace the seals. Whatever seals I can get to fairly easily. I know it looked like maybe this, I don't know, that might be grease and not fluid, but this one was definitely leaking back here. And I got a new one of those. The other thing is I don't know what it sounds like because it's electromagnetic. So I don't know what it sounds like when it engages. So yeah. I might even take it to a shop and see what they think about it, but we'll see. I don't know. I'm hesitant to always do that because I don't know. They're remove and replace people, right? They don't, but anyway. So I got all that done. My next steps are, I have found a guy with a header pipe, which I'm gonna purchase to replace. Looks fairly new. I'm gonna order a bunch of the parts that I need to put this all back together. They want you to replace the bolts and the nuts for the pinch bolts. My only thing with that is, we'll see. I replaced the nuts when I did the A-arms and the bushings. I'm gonna replace the cone washers. I'm gonna replace, they want you to replace the caliper bolts. So the thing is if you were in the field doing it, you wouldn't be able to replace all that stuff. So, you know, give and take. So anyway, that's it. Thanks for, that's the update for now. Hopefully the next part of the video is me putting everything back together, taking it for a test drive and seeing if it solves anything. So yeah, stay tuned for that. All right, so got the diff disassembled. Thought you might want to see inside of it. Pretty easy to disassemble. All the bolts that go on the outside here, you just remove them. They're not that much torque, 10 millimeter. And then there's like a little section here you can just pry under and it'll pop this up. There's a little seal here, which I have a new one of. And pry all around, like under the bolts, where the bolts go, and boom, pops right off. The bearings, so there's a bearing on either end cap, right? So there's a bearing in this cover, which is the coil. This is the electric, the part that energizes. And I imagine when it gets energized, it sucks the, it's kind of odd because it seems like it sucks it away from the pinion. But I guess, well, I don't know. It's odd. It's an odd, I don't really understand how it works, but then again, I don't need to understand how it works. I've looked at everything and inspected it, like all the rollers in here, which I guess is a problem. Like this cage is plastic, this ring here is plastic, this is plastic. All this can become kind of an issue, but everything looks good. So the bearings, like you can take them out and look at them. There's a seal on either end of this where the stub from the axle goes in on the one side. There's a seal and a bearing, and then the axle on the other side. I think, judging by the sound of this, that my bearing here is on its way out. and combine that with the noise from the prop shaft, and that's, I think, making my issue. So I'm gonna pop this pinion out and look at it even more. I gotta take the seal out, and then there's 2 snap rings in there, as far as I understand. So that'll be the next step. All right, so I got the next step done, getting the pinion and the pinion bearing out. Seal, pretty easy. I just screwed I made a hole. What I should have done was make a hole with a drill bit instead of a screw, because I went and I accidentally got the cage of the bearing. But the bearing, it makes a lot of noise. I don't know if you can hear that. It was making noise like that before that screw hole, but 2 snap rings. There's a small one on the actual pinion shaft, and then there's a bigger one that is around the casing. Pop those out, and then it just slides right out. So pretty easy, you know, to disassemble. I'm gonna try to find a new bearing. I already have a 5306 bearing, but I don't. This is a 5306 alpha. So I'm gonna do some research to make sure I don't need the alpha. Somebody was saying that you don't need it. It's like an angular. It's pretty much so that the bearing can take force on either side. But somebody was saying that the 5306 regular is the same way, but then what does the A mean? I don't know. And why I have it. So we'll see. I'm gonna see what I can find, and then I'll put it all back together. All right, so got the bearing off. This is the old bearing, which is a 5306 alpha, as you can see there. The new one is a 5306 with no alpha. They look essentially the same. When you look at them, they're the same sizes, everything. From my understanding online, reading about it, people say they're the same. I don't know. I could not find a 5306 alpha, so I decided I'm just going to use the regular non-alpha that I have. So I got the old bearing off, and there is a shim behind that bearing, so you have to make sure you put that back on. And I just used my shop press over here, which is a pretty good tool for pushing. You know, you want direct pressure. You don't want to hammer it or mallet it off. I thought I was going to need my bearing puller, but I didn't. I just used these 2 pieces that come with the press, and that got it. Was able to put it so that it's just pushing the bearing down. Now I'm going to press the new one on. So I'll probably use like a socket or something to just push, you know, the race. You just want to push this inner race on. You don't want to push the outside. You might push it off. So yeah, if in case you didn't know. All right, so got the new bearing on and installed. Got the new seal in here. Snap rings on. I put the new seal in on this stub end and this stub end here. Cleaned it all up. Torqued and Loctited the bolts that hold it all on there. Now it's time to put it back in the car. And so I'm gonna clean it up in there and then throw it in. It's pretty simple, I guess. It's not something too complicated, but if you're not comfortable with something like this, you should probably have somebody who's familiar with it. This is my first time doing it, so but luckily I've done some other stuff before, and so I'm relatively comfortable with doing it. But you know, it can be daunting, you know, stuff like this. Now, there's still a little bit of noise, but I think that's normal noise. It definitely feels better to turn. And I cleaned up some other stuff too. So it's nice to like go through it and like at least get an idea of what the condition of it is in. But we'll put it back in and we'll see how it goes. I got some other stuff to do. I also got, I don't know, but I got this new pipe to put back in. Picked it up from some guy online who had a bunch of extra parts. So I got some new gaskets and seals for that. I'm gonna throw that back in, all new bolts, everything. Put that back together. I got a new isolator because this one's all cracked and screwed up. So I got some pretty good, I'll be in a good place, I think. I'll be in a good position to see how it does for this race. And so it'll, you know, this is the one, which from what I hear, it's 160 miles, but it's fast and fun. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see what that's like. We'll see how the car does. I'm not really too nervous, but you know, any of this stuff is, there's a mystery, especially when you've never done it before. So yeah, I don't know. Enough of that rambling on. I'm gonna start putting stuff back in and maybe do some updates as I go along. So stay tuned and keep watching the video, and you know, if you have any questions, let me know. All right, so got front diff back in. Got the whole front suspension hooked back up, torqued, cotter pins, Loctite, all the stuff. Just have to do fluid. Yeah, just have to do fluid in the front gear case, the diff. Got the prop shaft hooked back up. Went with the roll pin. I was gonna do a bolt, but I decided, never mind. It's too much. We'll do that some other time. Then got started to work on the exhaust. So this is the new pipe. Anti-seize, new gasket, new donut gasket back here. It was a tricky fitment to get it lined up, but it lined up. At first I didn't think it was gonna line up. I got a new isolator in here. Springs are all hooked up. This one is, that's a little loose, and the bolt, well, I could tighten that up, I think. Yeah, so anyway, a lot of steps, getting it all hooked back up again. You know, this stuff is, it's time consuming. It's down to the wire, you know, because why wouldn't it be? So we'll see, we'll get it all hooked back up, and we'll see how it goes. I still need to put all the body panels back together, clean everything up, wipe everything down, because you might as well since you're in there, and then it should be ready to go. I'm going to do fluid changes. This race, as I mentioned, is 160 miles. Apparently it's fast. It's fast and fun. That's what I've been told, but we'll see. I'll give a post-race update in another video, but yeah, here we are. Almost ready to do some tests, you know, maybe a test run or two. So we'll see, but yeah, and I don't know, until next time, or until next part of the video or update or whatever.